In the quiet hours of the night, aboard a private yacht drifting off the coast of Catalina Island, one of Hollywood's most beloved stars disappeared. Hours later, her body was found floating in the cold Pacific, dressed in a nightgown, socks, and a red puffy jacket. The official story is it was a tragic accident, but the people who were with her that night, the only ones who might know what would have happened, have never told the same story. Was it simply an accident or a cover-up? Or something more sinister? On November 29th, 1981, Natalie Wood, the wide-eyed star actress turned silver screen icon, died under circumstances that would remain unclear to this day. Her death was sudden, shrouded in contradiction, and filled with eerie details, unexplained bruises, strange silences, and an old haunting prophecy that seemed to foreshadow her final moments. This is the story of Natalie Wood, a woman who spent her life performing roles both on camera and off. A life marked by beauty and pressure, fear and fame, love and betrayal, and a final night cloaked in mystery. I'm Denoitsky, and before we begin, this video is a little different than what I normally post. Since it involves real life tragedy, I'm gonna do my best to tell the story with respect and not be myself. For the record, I do not claim to have the answers on what happened during this night. I'm just laying out the details and you can decide for yourself. Alright, let's get into this. Before the world knew her as Natalie Wood, she was Natalie, I'm gonna mispronounce this, Nikolevia Zakhariko. I'll just put it here. Born in 1938 in San Francisco to Russian immigrant parents who were chasing their own version of the American dream. Her mother, Maria, had escaped the Soviet Union, bringing with her desperate hope to find a better life. She fully believed her daughter was destined to bring greatness, not as a hope but as a certainty. That belief wasn't gentle. It was a force that shaped Natalie's entire childhood. At just 4 years old, Natalie was cast in her first film. By 8, she had become a national sensation after starring in Miracle on 34th Street, capturing the hearts with her innocent face and quiet pose. She was everything the studio system wanted, photogenic, well-behaved, and completely under control. But behind that perfect smile, there was pressure, intense, unrelenting pressure. Maria was a strict, superstitious woman who demanded emotional authority, not just encouragement, but through fear. It's been said she would lock young Natalie in the closet and force her to cry for scenes. She didn't nurture a daughter, she trained a performer. From the beginning, Natalie wasn't just playing her characters, she was one. Her entire life became a role she had to perfect, and like many child stars, those early wounds would run deep, and that would continue to shape her into her adulthood. As Natalie matured, the public's fascination with her never faded, but it changed. No longer the innocent little girl, she was molded into Hollywood's idea of the ideal woman. Beautiful, glamorous, that shouldn't have made me giggle. Beautiful, glamorous, obedient. Their words, not mine. She found herself trapped in a cycle of shallow roles and curated romances, each designed to maintain her image rather than fulfill her as an artist or person. But Natalie wanted to be more. She didn't just want to be famous, she wanted to be good. At 16, she landed her breakout role in Rebel Without a Cause, opposite of James Dean. She delivered a raw, emotional, charged performance that earned her an Oscar nomination, and a measure of the respect she had long craved. Yet, even as her career flourished, Natalie struggled internally. Beneath the surface, she battled feelings of inadequacy and chronic anxiety. She didn't believe she was good enough, not an actress, and certainly not as a person. So she sought out therapy in private, which was practically taboo in Hollywood at the time. Even that wasn't enough to erase the deep fear that she was just performing, still living a life that truly wasn't hers. This is off script, but imposter syndrome is so real. Like, every time I go to get on camera, I just think, I'm not a fucking YouTuber. You gotta push through it. But there was one fear in particular that never left her. When Natalie was just a child, her mother took her to see a fortune teller with incense curling through the air and a crystal ball on the table. The woman peered into Natalie's eyes, and what she said would stick with her forever. "You will die in dark water." Natalie burst into tears. Her mother, deeply superstitious, never let her forget that prophecy. She would invoke it anytime Natalie was near the ocean or before she would get on a boat. And whether because of the prophecy or something deeper, Natalie grew up with a painful, almost paralyzing fear of deep water. She avoided swimming and hated boats. She felt genuine fear and dread near the sea. During one early film shoot, she nearly drowned, and the trauma only reinforced her phobia. So when her body was eventually found floating in dark waters off Catalina Island, many couldn't help but wonder, was this really an accident? Or had the prophecy come true? And I want to state, I'm fairly certain that's alleged. I don't think it's a fact that a woman actually gave her that prophecy, but am I not gonna put something cool in the video? But before that night, before the moment in the water, there were two men and two relationships that would change everything that followed. In 1957, Natalie married actor Robert Wagner. She was just 19 and he was already a household name at 26. Their union became a media fairy tale, two beautiful stars and a picture-perfect romance, but behind closed doors, things weren't so simple. Wagner, by many accounts, was charming but deeply insecure, especially when it came to Natalie's fame. He struggled with her independence, and their personalities often clashed. She was emotionally and driven by feelings, but he was pragmatic, and some say possessive. They divorced in 1962, but something between them remained, a connection they couldn't fully sever. A decade later, they remarried, both older, both changed, but the cracks returned almost immediately. Natalie was ready to return to acting. She wanted a second act, a life beyond being a wife and a mother. Wagner, aging in a cutthroat industry, feared he was being left behind, professionally and personally. In 1981, she began filming Brainstorm, an enigmatic method actor fascinated Natalie. They grew close during the filming, whether their bond was emotional or something more.
The gift.
What is it?
It's me.
But what was clear is that Wagner was jealous, and Walken's presence symbolized everything Wagner feared. Natalie's freedom, ambition, and desire to step back into the spotlight, all that tension, personal, profession, emotion, would come to a head during a fateful weekend on Wagner's yacht, the Splendor. Natalie, Wagner, Walken, and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern, set out for Catalina Island for what was supposed to be a relaxing holiday weekend at sea. But beneath the surface, things were already unraveling. Saturday night, the group went ashore for dinner at a local restaurant. Witnesses later recalled a tense atmosphere at the table, with several empty wine bottles and a little conversation. Natalie appeared distracted, even uncomfortable. Wagner looked agitated. Walken stayed quiet. I don't remember if I put in a quote from Walken, but if there is, you bet your ass I'm gonna fucking try my best to sound like him. Some staff claim the couple argued on the way out, though the details were lost in the wind. Around 9 p.m., they returned to the yacht. The ocean was restless, the winds picked up. By 10 p.m., a heated argument broke out, this time between Wagner and Walken. According to the reports, Wagner accused Walken of encouraging Natalie to pursue her career at the expense of her family. At 11, a wine bottle was shattered on the deck. Natalie reportedly stormed off to her cabin. Just after midnight, Davin claimed that he heard a loud, angry exchange on the back of the deck between Natalie and Wagner. Then came a strange silence. When he went back to check, Natalie was gone, and so was the dinghy, but rather than panic, Wagner poured himself a drink. It wasn't until 1:30 in the morning that the Coast Guard was called. At 7:45, Natalie's body was found floating face down in the water, just about a mile from the yacht. She was still dressed in her night clothes and jacket. The dinghy was nearby, untouched, with its motor off and the rope trailing loosely off the water. Natalie had bruises on her arms and legs and a scrape on her cheek, and no signs of having tried to swim, and there was no logical reason she would have climbed into that dinghy alone in the middle of the night, unless something drove her to do it. Or someone did. Initially, the cause of death was ruled an accidental drowning, but physical evidence raised troubling questions. Natalie's blood alcohol limit was .14, well over the legal limit to drive, and she had also taken painkillers and motion sickness medication, a combination that would have left her unsteady and disoriented. Some bruises on her body looked like they had come from being grabbed. Others were located on her knees and shins, odd places to be injured by a simple fall. And then came the confession from Captain Darvin years later. He claimed Wagner told him not to turn on the ship's yacht lights and not to call for help. But why? Was Wagner trying to hide something? Or buying time before making the call? Over the decade, 4 main theories have emerged, each with its own believers and doubters. Theory 1. The dinghy accident. The official story that holds Natalie went to secure a dinghy after hearing it banging against the side of the yacht. She then slipped and fell into the water. But Natalie's lifelong fear of water makes the theory hard to accept. Those closest to her insist she would have never gone near the edge, especially in the dark, wearing a nightgown and socks. Theory 2. A fight turned fatal. Darvin believes that Wagner was responsible for an argument that escalated, and Natalie was either shoved off or fell during the confrontation. The bruises, the timeline, the silence, it all seems to support the idea of a fatal argument that spun out of control. Theory 3. A deliberate cover-up. A woman on shore claims she heard someone, a woman, crying for help around midnight. "Help me, please." She said the voice was followed by a man's reply. Alright, this might be my only chance. "Hold on, we're coming." I tried like Yeah, that's the best I can do. She may have fallen off alive and was savable for 15 minutes or more, but the Coast Guard wasn't called for another hour and a half. I didn't put that, but that also fits the theory that if she fell, they could have dropped the dinghy or something. I don't know. In theory 4, a love triangle. And then there's Walken. He has always maintained that he had nothing to do with Natalie's death. He says he went to bed early and didn't hear anything unusual, but his silence has drawn suspicion. Was he a witness, a cause, or simply at the wrong place at the wrong time? We may never know. The death of Natalie Wood sent immediate shockwaves through Hollywood. She wasn't just another actress, she was Hollywood royalty, a 3-time Academy Award-winning nominee. Before the age of 25, her death was simply a tragic loss. It was a mystery wrapped in glamour, tension, and suspicion. When the news broke, the public was stunned. The beautiful starlet dead in the water. The headline the next morning didn't just report the tragedy, they speculated. Hollywood star dies in boating accident, read some. Others were more provocative. Fighting on the yacht? Suspicious drowning? Even from the beginning, something didn't sit right. The Los Angeles coroner's office initially ruled her death as an accidental drowning, and the official theory they ran with was Natalie was trying to secure that dinghy that had been banging against the yacht, and then slipped and fell into the cold waters of the Pacific. But almost no one close to Natalie believes this story. Her sister Alana would immediately raise questions. Natalie was terrified of dark water, she said. She never would have tried to retie a dinghy, especially not drunk, especially not at night, and especially not alone. Those closest to her agreed. It was out of character. And then there was Captain Dennis Davern. In the days after Natalie's death, Darvin initially supported Wagner's account, but over the decades following the story, it's changed, and drastically. Years later in interviews and a shocking book, Davern claimed he'd been pressured to stay quiet. He said there was a fight that night, a loud alcohol-fueled argument between Wagner and Natalie, and then silence. He says he believes Wagner was responsible, not necessarily for murder, but for an act of violence that went too far, a push maybe, or something unintentional that turned deadly. According to Davern, after that fight, Wagner waited a long time to alert the Coast Guard. The search didn't start until hours later, long after it was too late. The most haunting detail? Davern claimed Wagner looked him in the eye and said, "Natalie's gone, she's missing," and then added, "Don't say anything." But in 2011, 30 years after her death, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department reopened the case. This wasn't just some internet conspiracy catching steam, it was a formal public investigation. New witnesses had come forward. Most were anonymous at first, but all seemed to point in one direction: Wagner. In 2012, the coroner amended Natalie's death certificate. The cause of death was changed from accidental drowning to drowning. And under undetermined factors, that is not a small tweak. That's the system saying something is wrong here. The report noted that the fresh bruises on her arms and legs, as well as the scratches on her neck, were all injuries not consistent with a fall, but potentially with an altercation. And then finally, in 2018, investigators named Robert Wagner a person of interest in the case. Not a suspect, not charged, but a public figure officially under scrutiny in his wife's death 37 years after it happened. Wagner has consistently denied all these allegations. He has never been arrested and no charges have been filed, but he also refuses to speak with investigators after being named a person of interest. And to me and other people, that speaks volumes. As the case came back into the public's eye, it took a second life. True crime documentaries, podcasts, and YouTube videos, that's me. Shows like 48 Hours Later and Dateline NBC revisited the mystery. Every time a new theory surfaced or a new witness was uncovered, social media lit up with speculation. Many who had never seen a Natalie Wood's film, her death became her most famous role. The drowning wasn't just an accident, it became a symbol of unanswered questions and a dark undercurrent in Hollywood's golden age. Even now, TikTok and Reddit threads pop up regularly asking the same question: who killed Natalie Wood? Was it Wagner? Was it an accident? Was it a cover-up? Could it even be Christopher Walken? It was not Christopher Walken. And perhaps the most eerie question of all: why do we still not know? Despite the media resurgence, justice has just remained elusive. In the court of public opinion, Robert Wagner is a suspicious figure, but in the eyes of the law, he is free. And as time passes, the likelihood of charges seem to dwindle. Some blame the LAPD and Hollywood's old-school power networks. Wagner was, and in many ways is still part of the elite. Others suggest the truth may be too messy, too politically charged, or simply too lacking in physical evidence. The case will probably remain unsolved forever. Not due to a conspiracy, but due to a tragedy. A tragedy, alcohol, and a bad decision on a cold November night. Natalie's grave is adorned with the phrase, more than love. To many, that's how she lived, radiant, full of passion, complicated, and magnetic. But her legacy is now intertwined with one of the most haunting unsolved celebrity deaths in American history. She became a kind of myth, forever 43, lost at sea. Immortalized not just by her roles, but by the mystery that swallowed her whole. And while Wagner is now 95, unlikely to face trial, one question will always remain. Did Hollywood protect one of its own at the expense of truth? Alright, thank you for joining me in this deep dive into a life, legacy, and unanswered death of Natalie Wood. If you like this video, I think I'm going to start doing this more often. It's certainly not every video, but I want to do videos over like Elvis and, you know, kind of the dark history of celebrities. If you want to see more videos like that, just hit the like button, hit subscribe, you know, all that fun stuff. If you're like me and you were still in your daddy's ball sack when this all happened, this is really interesting to look into, so I want to keep doing more stuff like this. In the meantime, if you like this video, you will love one of these videos if I can get them to pop up here. One over plants that's really cool and got super low views, but it's really good. I think you should watch it. This one over the bicameral mind, which was a really good video. I really like making that one. I'm Denoisky, Donovan, whatever you want to call me. See you in the next one.